Good day everyone, this is Nemesis, and today, at long last, we are going to take a look at the new PvP build for the necromancer class in Guild Wars 2. In this video we are going to go through a build overview, then the weapons and utilities, then we will move on to selecting our traits, runes, sigils and the amulet. And last but definitely not least, we are going to take an in-depth look at the Ravager's damage rotation and playstyle. That's going to be a little bit more complicated. Before we begin, some quick notes. First, I always recommend that players make their own builds before reaching out to me. It's part of the fun, and it's also a very good way to truly master a class. Secondly, I feel that it is needed to specify that my builds are not designed for maximum effectiveness when in combination with any forms of exploiting or the abuse of bad gameplay design. So, the build overview. In order to better understand a certain build, I feel that it is required to have a structured classification beforehand. For example, in Guild Wars 2, every single build will always use at least one of these three stats, either power, condition damage or healing, as its primary active stat, also known as skill modifier, to scale up the build's skills. In the Ravager's case, it will scale off of power, and it will strive to fulfill one of the three roles that one can undertake in PvP: bunker, DPS or support. And when it comes to support, the categories you may choose to specialize in are buffing, healing or debuffing. So when we draw the line, the Frozen Ravager is a power type support build which specializes in debuffing. And of course, just like any other build, it has some pros and cons. Under advantages, I will mention that the build has maximum single target boon removal, perma chill plus very high CCing potential, and last but definitely not least, the ability to survive focus fire and stun lock. On top of that, it also has high single target bursts, which makes it excellent at finishing players off. Overall, we have an amazing initiator, team fighter and executioner. The downside is, it's a little bit vulnerable to condition damage, has slow mobility, low sustained damage and no disengage, which makes it an overall horrible duelist and roamer. Therefore, in order to maximize your effectiveness while playing this build, it is recommended to work in synergy with really high bursters that also have sustained damage, such as glass cannon necromancers or shatter mesmers and so on. Before we move on to selecting our weapons, I want to share with you guys two principles of build creation that I go by. Never invest in anything you don't use, and never take an advantage for yourself at the cost of your team's disadvantage. For our first power type weapon, we have to decide between the axe and the dagger. In this build, I went for the dagger in order to gain access to the 4-second immobilize from Dark Pact, which, if you use it at the right time, can prevent the target from disengaging. So we are taking our first step on the path to becoming a debuffer. We also have Life Siphon, which heals for about 300 even if the damage is being negated. Not really that useful in this build, but it does add a little bit to the overall sustain. And last but not least, we have Dagger 1, which is a very fast 3-chain attack, something to remember for later, that also cleaves and provides the user with life force, which, as we know, powers up the necromancer death shroud mechanic. Now for the offhand weapon, here we have to choose between dagger, warhorn or focus. Dagger, transfer condition and bleeding. Nope. Warhorn, cone shape daze and enhanced mobility. This is actually not bad, but you remember we are going for max boon removal, and there is also another very good reason why we can't use the warhorn in this build. So I will opt for the focus, since it gives us further access to life force plus regeneration while debuffing the enemy with vulnerability, and it gives me access to my first chill and a very strong boon removal. Now, chill, in my opinion, is the strongest debuff in the game at the moment. Mind you, I say debuff, not CC. While a target is chilled, not only does he move 66% slower, that automatically means it's harder for him to engage or disengage, but also all skill cooldowns recharge 66% slower as well, which translates into 66% less frequent bursts, less frequent invulnerabilities, less frequent everything. It basically reduces the enemy effectiveness almost in half. It is amazing as long as you manage to get it to stick to a target, because we know most players just shake it off. But we will get to that later. For our secondary weapon set, I opted to go for the staff, since it provides the most synergy with dagger focus in this playstyle. We have Chill Banes for our second chill, which goes really well with the one from Spinal Shivers. We have Mark of Blood, which can actually give you perma regeneration, and goes well with what you get from Reaper's Touch on top of Life Siphon. Here we also have our first CC from Reaper's Mark, and a little bit of defense versus condition from Putrid Mark, which is also a possible extra way of debuffing the enemy with chill and vulnerability and all that good stuff. Okay, moving to our slot skills. Our healing spell is without a doubt Consume Conditions. It removes all conditions on self and heals extra based on the conditions removed. What more do you want? Our first utility skill is Spectral Grasp. It's our second CC, third chill, and third way to obtain life force. It's also a very good way to initiate, since as we know in structured PvP it's all about positioning, and having the ability to mess up someone's positioning can really turn the course of a fight. Second utility skill is Scrapped Boon. Converts 5 boons on the target into negative conditions. It's not just a boon removal. Used at the right time, it can be turned into a third CC, since it can transform stability into fear. The third utility slot is the only one not set in stone. It can be filled with either Well of Power for more defense versus conditions, or Spectral Armor for more defense versus bursters, or even Spectral War for a possible extra CC. I personally run with Spectral Walk for a little bit more mobility, but in reality it all depends on your team composition, really. As for the elite skill, I use Plague. Pum pum pum. Because of its stacking stability, outrageous health, and the AoE blind spam from Plague of Darkness, it is the ultimate survive, focus, fire, and debuffing spell that the necromancer has. Now, it is time to go over the traits to find ways to further improve the effectiveness of our desired playstyle. First, we take a look at Spite, and we see right off the bat that it gives power and condition duration, which we need to make both our chill and vulnerability last longer on the target. So it seems we are on the right track. For the minor traits, which we automatically get, we have gain health when you kill a foe. Yeah, it's actually quite good in team fights. If you manage to kill or at least tag a lot of people every 5 seconds, not bad. Yeah. Gain healing power based on your power. This one really doesn't do anything for us in this build, but Siphon power, however, can be good if you are tanky enough to take a lot of hits while you are already low HP. Now, our first choice is Spiteful Talisman. With it, our Reaper's Touch and Spinal Shivers now have 1200 range. And as you can see, Spinal Shivers is now on a 60-second cooldown. To make matters worse, or better, depends on who you ask, we also get a second Spinal Shivers on a 20-second cooldown whenever you get a target to 50% health, thanks to Chill of Death. So, when you have 2 remove 3 boons on a 20-second cooldown, in addition to Corrupt Boon, your enemy will have a really hard time staying buffed. It's also important to know that the damage that comes from these skills can crit. And with that being said, we have finished the part of the build which was about boon removal. Moving on, we have Close to Death, increased damage done to enemies below the health threshold. It's basically self-explanatory in a build that was designed to finish players off in addition to being a debuffer. Now, in our playstyle of choice, we don't really have much use for condition damage and traits from curses, or healing power from blood magic, or a lot of boon duration from death magic, but some extra ferocity, as in critical strike damage, and a higher life force pool may prove useful. So, going to skip gluttony because it's still a useless trait. That 10% is actually really insignificant. We have strength of undeath, 5% more damage while above 50% health, which synergizes with close to death. And last but definitely not least, we have Last Gasp, which gives spectral armor once you drop down to 50% health. This synergizes really well with another spectral armor, or spectral walk, or well of power. So you now have access to 2 stun breakers. We are walking further down the path of surviving focus fire and stun lock. While we are on the topic, since we have reached the most crucial part in this guide, there are a few things that we need to establish before we move forward. The term is glass cannon. In no game in history was there ever a glass support or glass tank. Doesn't even make sense. In order to be an effective support and debuffer, you need to live long enough to actually apply your debuffs, and also make sure that your debuffs stick to the target, but we'll get to that soon enough. Therefore, this will be a tanky build by default. Now you guys might remember not too long ago I did a PvP balance check video dedicated to the necromancer, in which I explained in great detail the fundamental flaws and shortcomings of the class. Low mobility, no disengage, no scaling defense, or the ability to survive focus fire and stun lock. So if you guys want to learn something about the class weaknesses while having the pleasure to see me getting zerged and ping-ponged around in 100 ranked games, feel free to check out this video right here. Speaking of glass cannon, if for example you take the Berserker Amulet and Superior Rune of the pack, you can easily get to 200% critical strike damage and 40% critical strike chance. That being boosted to 90% critical strike chance while in Death Shroud with the aid of Death Perception. Now, here is the number one mistake that people make, and I hear this all the time. Oh man, I'm going to do this to the enemy and this to the enemy and I'm going to be so OP. People are under the impression that they can just go in PvP and start spamming endless life blasts as if the enemy is just going to sit there and let you do that. Now, in reality, people fight back, unlike some monsters in PvE. People will counter you. Because of the widely known lack of disengage and ability to survive focus fire and stun lock that the necromancer suffers from, sometimes you won't even get to do 3 life blasts before you get splattered all over the ground. So, we will counter them instead. We will counter their counter. Don't get me wrong, Glass Cannon Necromancer still has its uses if you manage to protect him, and especially if the target is prepared beforehand, you can really leave a trail of corpses. So that's where this build comes in. You're like the yin to the yang. Oh, how are you able to survive focus fire and stun lock and at the same time still be able to do the damage you guys seen in the beginning of this video? Well, the Necromancer has a natural high HP pool, but when you're getting focus fire by multiple targets and you have 1900 armor, you're literally asking for it. So, that means toughness. So we go ahead and take the Chevalier, that armor. And now we have 2800 armor, 3000 while in Death Shroud thanks to Armored Shroud. Now, you are significantly more tanky than before, but you are still vulnerable to being stun locked. May take them a little longer to kill you, but you still can't escape your fate. Unless you have 3 seconds stability with a stun breaker from Foot in the Grave on a 6 second cooldown. What about Immobilize? Shroud removal. Okay, but what about the damage? You got the ferocity, but since you don't have the precision from the Berserker Amulet or Death Perception, you never get to use it. This is my favorite part. Le pièce du résistance. Superior Sigil of Intelligence. 3 guaranteed 200% critical strike damage life blast hits under the protection of stability right after you just escaped stun and immobilize. More? More. Done at 50% faster rate from Superior Sigil of Rage. Talking about countering. Chill. How to make chill stick to a target. To prepare that target for killing in a team fight. How to counter all that condition removal. Well, with the help of Rune of Ice, which by the way gives 7% increased damage versus shield foes, which puts us at an overall 32% extra damage versus targets under 50% health, further increasing our effectiveness at finishing people off. We now have 60% chill duration, which makes all of our chills last for about 6 to 8 seconds. We also have 6 ways to apply chill to a target, which is more than enough to go through all the condition removals and maintain that fabled perma chill. So you see guys, sometimes it's kind of pointless to have the capabilities for more than 4k life blast hits in a team fight without the proper support to ensure that you don't just go splat and actually get to do those hits, and they will not be countered over and over and over again in various ways like invulnerabilities, disengage and so on. Now we are slowly moving towards the damage rotation and playstyle part of the video, and it is important to remember that you are playing a support build. You may feel the urge to go Rambo on people, and even though you may be able to kill some glass cannons in 1v1s, this is not a duelist build, and anything that cannot be bursted down will just crush you eventually. Fear not, even though you lack disengage, you can actually make your opponent's mobility worse than yours and just walk away. Your objective on the map is to protect the high DPSs and prepare targets for killing. Whenever you're not protecting your carry, especially one which also lacks disengage but synergizes really well with you because of the extra boon removal, like a glass cannon necromancer, you should assume him dead by default. Not because he's a bad player, on the contrary. I have absolute faith in my mate Batrish. The things we did together in PvP were simply amazing, and I'm confident that he can win at least 70% of all duels. But in structured PvP it's not about duels, it's about winning. And you guys already seen what one glass cannon can do to the other glass cannon. Now imagine what happens when the enemy team sees him without support, because everyone knows by now to focus fire the necro first. He'll just get evaporated. So the first thing you do is to draw attention to yourself and bait the enemy, which shouldn't be too hard considering people will go for you immediately anyway. Because of your 3000 armor, 50% stability uptime, 3 stun breakers, one of them on a 6-second cooldown, 3 ways of dealing with incoming conditions, one of them on a 6-second cooldown. In addition to perma chill, you can survive focus fire and stun lock. My solution to "Look, it's the Nemesis, get him!"
Lost the waterfall. You captured the quarry. I am dead. Safe from harm. Hurry!
But back to my original point. You are now free to take your time and make tactical decisions. It's all about smart play. The reason why I said in the beginning the damage rotation and playstyle is a bit more complicated is because there is no damage rotation. In this build it's all about being reactive. It's all about countering your opponents at the right time to turn the tide of a battle. So as soon as you got people's attention and they focus fire you, your job is to call out targets, separate them from their team and prepare that target for killing by applying as much chill as necessary until it sticks and you have the means to do so. If they try to disengage, you immobilize or you pull them back. Mind you, there will still be targets that will be able to get away from you quite easily, such as per my evade thieves, but then again those guys can get away from anyone, slippery bastards. But on the plus side, they just bounce off of you, so it kind of evens the odds in team fights. Now, if the target is abundant in boons, you remove some of those boons with spinal shivers. Once the target that is being focus fire drops down to under 50% health, and you automatically trigger the second spinal shivers. If the target has healed during this time, you quickly do a weapon swap into Therefor 1 spam followed by CCs if necessary. If the target has not healed during this time, there is a good chance he will try to do so now under the cover of stability. So be sure to have Corrupt Boon ready to interrupt. And then proceed to continuously spam CC, or you may also opt to add a little bit more extra damage with weapon swap into Therefor 1 spam. It's totally up to you. Once the target is downed, as the support with access to 3 seconds stability every 6 seconds, it becomes part of your job to stomp people in team fights. Every single second in which a high DPSer does not do high DPS in a team fight because he has to stomp someone is a second wasted. God, after how much trouble I had stomping people with my necromancer in the past, this is so satisfying. You guys will see what I'm talking about. Following these easy steps, whenever I had a good game, that meant 14, 15, 16 kills. That meant two-manning their lord faster than they can even react. Bunker guardians dropped like flies. Warrior bunkers could not escape.
The chieftain has returned.
Even bunker engineers went down.
Clock tower captured. Target identified.
There was also this one time when we did 2v4 and it wasn't even my best PvP moment. As always, just when you think you have enough footage and you don't turn your record on, you end up doing a 2v3 win, 2v3 win, 2v3 win at far. I was like, oh my god, and then I realized I didn't turn record on. I was like, oh my god. Even though I never enjoyed playing a support in any games until now, this build is just so amazing. I have never had this much fun in PvP ever. You guys will understand exactly what I mean after you play it. That's why it took such a long time to bring this video out. Took me quite a while to figure out how I'm going to present this build to you guys. And I felt that my old PvP footage simply didn't showcase the build's true potential, so I've recorded another 30 games. It was a lot of work, but it was worth it. I might also do some PvP highlights with all the footage that I have left. Would be a shame if it goes to waste. This build is also kind of the middle ground between what we currently have in the PvP meta and how the necromancer will look in Heart of Thorns. It seems that this particular playstyle, the executioner, will be getting a lot of love in the coming expansion. So if you guys enjoyed this build and you would like to help me continue making this kind of videos, feel free to check out this video and see what my project, the Legion Network, is all about. But until next time, enjoy your gaming and have a great day.